Guess who just went to Epic Universe for the first time? My neighbor. Kidding, it was totally me. Let's talk about it. Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Vertigo Views. My name's Christian, and I have 25 years experience of researching, visiting, and working in theme parks. So I was so excited to be able to get to experience Epic Universe before it officially opened to the public. So never when I was growing up did I think that I would be a Universal Orlando pass holder, let alone get to experience a brand new theme park before it opened to the public. So I was just so excited to be able to do this. Now keep in mind, as I talk about my visit, the park is not officially open to the public yet. It doesn't open up until May 22nd. So a lot of the things that were open were still technically under rehearsals, they were calling them, technical rehearsals. So some rides may not be fully up to the capacity they should be. Some things may not all be working the way they should. So keep that in mind as I talk through some of the things that I experienced. And remember that the park is not officially open yet. And if you're interested in visiting Epic Universe, I'm a travel agent that really specializes in theme parks, particularly Universal Orlando Resort. So I would love to help you plan your next adventure so you can experience Epic Universe as well as any of the other parks at the resort, including Islands of Adventure, Universal Studios Florida, and Volcano Bay. There's so many options to see at this resort now, and I don't want you to feel overwhelmed or stressed out. I want you to be able to have the best time possible. So the link is in the description if you'd like to begin booking your trip with me now. The entrance to the park is awesome, and it really fits the story of Epic Universe as a whole. So basically what's happening is you are traveling through this portal to be able to get access to travel to all these other portals that the Celestials have harnessed and are letting you travel to. So when you walk through the first portal into Epic Universe, you immediately walk into Celestial Park. And this is kind of themed like a Central Park, beautiful atmosphere with Helios Grand Hotel in the background, lots of water features. They've planted trees that are going to continue to grow over time and provide more shade. It's just a really beautiful entrance. When you walk in, to be able to sort of look around and see all this beauty around you is really cool. So I love the idea that you're basically traveling to all these other portals. Some of the employees would also get really into it and still stay in character in a way, because they'd be waving at you and be like, "Welcome, travelers," because you're technically supposed to be traveling to all these places. So it was really cool to see that even some of the employees were really taking the time and effort to make sure that they were staying with the theme of the park. And it's just really great being able to walk in here and just see the beauty of this park first thing. I did get a chance to do Constellation Carousel in Celestial Park, and it was cute. You know, it's a carousel. And unfortunately, I ended up picking a seat that did not turn. Basically, the way that this carousel works is you turn in a big circle, and then you're also on these little platforms that also spin independently. And I was not on one of the options that did that, so I sort of just went up and down and just looked around. But I will say that I bet this looks really great at night. The constellation theming is really cool. The music and the different styles of the animals are really neat, and I think that the ride is programmed to move differently for each song it plays, so there's a few different options you may get. So I'm really excited to see what this looks like at night, and families will definitely really enjoy this. Walking through Celestial Park to get to each of the portals is an experience all on its own. There's so many beautiful fountains. Sometimes there's even shows where the fountains shoot super high up into the air. You actually can get a little wet if you're too close. But it's just so beautiful to be walking from portal to portal and be able to just see and be surrounded by beauty. Now, a lot of people are saying it's not super shaded at this park, but you have to remember this is a brand new theme park. There's lots of trees that have been planted in places that just haven't had the chance to grow as tall as they're gonna grow. So yeah, right now there's not a ton of shade. There are some areas and benches that have shade coverings over them, but if they just threw shade coverings throughout Celestial Park, for example, it just wouldn't look as good. And it would just feel like you were just walking inside and not being able to experience this park for what it truly is and how beautiful it really is. So definitely make sure you're bringing sunscreen and reapplying, and keep that in mind when you're planning your trip, because if you are somebody who does not like the hot Florida heat, then maybe you shouldn't go to this park in July or August when it's going to be the hottest. But I will say that just walking around, it's so beautiful. There's so many things to look at. Walking from portal to portal is so nice and enjoyable because it's just a beautiful atmosphere that you're in. Now, this was my first visit to Epic Universe, but I'm sure it won't be my last. However, I did want to try to knock out as many experiences as I could. I sort of had an idea in my head of what I wanted to do. I was there by myself, so I wanted to try to ride things single rider line as much as possible. And I was pretty sure that I wanted to try to hit up the rides in Super Nintendo World first, because from what I was seeing online, those looked like they were having pretty much the most consistent long lines in the park. So that's where I went first, Super Nintendo World. Now, I have been to the Super Nintendo World in Hollywood, so I didn't end up doing Mario Kart this time because I wanted to focus on doing other things in Epic Universe that you can't really do anywhere else or that I haven't experienced. So I know, based on what other people have been telling me, that Donkey Kong Minecart Madness has been sort of the problem child in the park. It breaks down quite a lot. It has low capacity. So that's where I made my first move. Now, I just want to say that whenever you walk into the portal to get to Super Nintendo World, it's so cool walking through that pipe and hearing the classic Mario sounds as you go up the escalators. And then once you get to the top, you walk through Peach's castle. The view you get is just almost overwhelming. Super Nintendo World actually may be a little overwhelming to the senses for some people because there's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of movement. There's a lot of sounds. There's just a lot going on. It really does look and feel like the video games though. And something that's different about Super Nintendo World at Epic Universe than over at Universal Studios Hollywood is I actually kind of like the different levels here. I know that some people don't like that you have to take the escalators and then take stairs to get around, but I like that you kind of enter high up and then you can sort of look down on things. You can see what's above you. You can kind of just look around and see what you can see. I kind of like that. Is it a little annoying to have to go up the escalators and then immediately go down the stairs if you want to get to some of the things to do? Yeah, I mean, it can be a little annoying, but I think that the views pretty much make up for it. So another thing that Epic Universe's Super Nintendo World has that Universal Studios Hollywood does not is Donkey Kong Country. And I really like how they did this. It's basically almost like a portal within a portal. So you're walking through Super Nintendo World and you sort of turn off into this back corner here and it sort of starts to shift from the Super Nintendo World brick into this Donkey Kong rock work that I thought was really cool. And then you get another reveal when you turn of the Golden Temple and the music even changes. That's something I think this park does really well is they really paid attention to what you were going to be hearing as you were going to be in all these different places. So the music changes from the kind of 8-bit Nintendo style sounds to a lot of drums and the sounds get a little more like wacky sounding because it's Donkey Kong. So you walk in and you see the Golden Temple, you see the giant Kong treehouse there with some bananas that make a great photo op, and then you can see Minecart Madness over on the side and then straight ahead of you. Now when I went, I immediately walked up to Minecart Madness and it was delayed. So I waited a few minutes to see if it was going to open up. It didn't really look like it was going to be though, so I decided to try and come back later. Spoiler alert though, it never fully reopened enough for me to be able to ride it, but we'll talk a little bit about that later on. However, I love this Donkey Kong Country area. One of my best friends is a big fan of the Donkey Kong games, and I was sending them pictures and they said they were screaming at their desk as I was sending them. It just looks amazing. The level of detail, the water, all the different characters, it just looks really cool. So overall, I was very impressed with Super Nintendo World. Now I did come back later that night to try and ride Minecart Madness, and so what I did was I basically rode everything else in the park, and within the last few minutes of the park closing, I hopped in line for Minecart Madness because the capacity is so low and because it was having so many breakdowns, I didn't want to wait in line and then not be able to do anything else because the park closed and I was still waiting in line for this ride. So I came back right at the end of the night, waited in line about 20 to 30 minutes. It had a posted 90-minute wait, but then the ride broke down again and I waited for another 20 to 30 minutes before they eventually cleared out the line and I didn't get to ride. So this is something I'm going to have to do on my next visit. However, I did get to take some amazing nighttime shots of Super Nintendo World, and it looks amazing. The lighting really just makes everything pop. It looks really great at night. So it looks great during the day. It looks great at night. Overall, I'm a big fan of this land. My recommendation would be, if you're going to want to do these rides, hit them up first. They're going to be very popular. Minecart Madness, I don't think ever saw less than an 80-minute wait when I was there. Mario Kart, it can get down to about 20 minutes, but I would still try to prioritize those two attractions. And if you're a single rider, I believe both rides that you access as a single rider. Now, I know that Donkey Kong Minecart Madness does. Not 100% sure about Mario Kart though. Also, there is Toadstool Cafe, which I ate at in Hollywood, so I passed this time. But if you want to be able to eat within Super Nintendo World and experience Toad, who is the true villain of the Super Mario series, by the way, then you can also eat here. But again, the line can tend to get pretty long for it, so try to make a reservation or just plan to wait a bit for that. The next portal I walked through was Dark Universe. Now, this was probably the one I was looking the most forward to because I am a huge horror movie fan. I love Halloween Horror Nights. I love monsters. I love scary movies. I love all of it. So I was super excited to experience this. So what were my thoughts on my most anticipated land? Well, I will say this. Based on some of the things that I was seeing from other people, I don't think that everything in this land when I went was fully complete yet. I didn't see a lot of characters walking around. I did see Igor, who was great, but I didn't see anyone else while I was there. So I will say that the mood probably was not amplified as much as I would have liked. But that reveal of turning and seeing the mansion and seeing Curse of the Werewolf, Das Steakhouse is right there. It's really cool. And I bet this land is going to really, really come alive at night. I definitely need to visit this world at night when I visit Epic Universe the next time, because I'm sure that that is what this land is perfectly primed for. So the first thing I wanted to do was the Frankenstein Experiment, Monsters Unchained, the main ride in this area, because they had already announced that it was going to be closing earlier in the evening than the rest of the park. So I went over there first to make sure I had a chance to do it. So I joined the single rider line for this because it was a pretty long wait. I want to say it was about 60, 70 minutes whenever I joined for the standard queue. So I did single rider, and I will say that unfortunately you miss a lot of the queue whenever you do this ride. So if you're somebody who wants to see all the details within the queue, you're gonna have to do the standby line. So try to do that if you can, or you can try to wait until the line goes down to see if you won't have to wait as long. However, I barely had to wait anything for this ride. And in fact, I came back and did it later on in the day before it closed, and I, as a single rider, walked right onto the ride. So it is definitely an option to help you save some time, but you will miss out on a lot of the details. So what did I think of Monsters Unchained? Okay, here's the thing. I'm not a huge fan of this style of ride. So for those of you that have been to the other Universal Orlando parks, Islands of Adventure has Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, which follows the same kind of ride system. And I just don't find it super thrilling, or at least as thrilling as I would like it to be. However, I will say that the vibes in this ride are amazing. The animatronics look awesome. But I'm not gonna lie, the first time I rode this, I was a little underwhelmed just because of some of the things that I had heard people say about this ride. I came off it going, yeah, it looked great. The animatronics were amazing, but I felt like I was kind of just looking at animatronics. So I said, I'll come back later and kind of maybe see if the ride is a little different or see how I'm feeling and go from there. So when I came back later on in the day, I did notice that some of the effects were working a little better, both in my car and I think just in general, which seems to be the opposite of what most people are experiencing. A lot of people are saying that you should get there first thing in the morning because the ride kind of starts to break down throughout the day right now. I had the opposite experience where I rode right before it closed down and I feel like I saw more and I definitely enjoyed the ride more. Now, do I wish it was a little more thrilling given the theme of this ride? Yes, I wish that these things flipped you upside down or really whipped you around, and they do whip you around once or twice, but I kind of wish it just was a little more thrilling. However, if you love scary movies and you love the Universal monsters in particular, there's a lot to see here. There's real fire effects. You get really close to some of the animatronics. The level of detail on the animatronics is really cool. I like how they incorporated animatronics sometimes in front of screens. That looked really neat. And so I do recommend that people ride this ride. I just wish it was a little more thrilling. And I wish it's some of the things like the fact that you can see the other cars around you. It kind of ruins that immersion effect. But I did enjoy the ride overall. I think it's going to be one that grows on me, and I just will have to keep riding it over and over. Next up, I did Curse of the Werewolf, which is the spinning roller coaster in Dark Universe. Now, I had seen some footage of this testing, and it seemed pretty short and seemed like it wasn't going to be that thrilling. I waited in the single rider line for this, which didn't move very quickly, but I will say that once I rode the ride, I was pretty impressed with it. It was actually a little more thrilling than I thought it was going to be. There's a few surprises in here with set pieces that were really cool. There's a forwards and backwards launch that was fun. And once my car really started spinning, it got really fun. I, at one point, got like kind of dizzy. It was really cool. I will say this ride is pretty short though. Like I would not wait in a super long line for this just because the ride is so short. And yes, everybody is talking about the final statue at the end of the ride and how also when you're sitting on the brake run, you can turn and you just see like backstage areas that aren't super hidden by the fence they built because they didn't build the fence high enough. That is something that I'd like to see fixed because I feel like for such a fun ride, for that to be the ending is just kind of underwhelming. So I would like to see them fix that, but I will say it's a pretty fun ride. I'd say it's definitely more intense than like a Slinky Dog Dash over at Disney World because of the spinning, and I feel like the launches have a bit more of a punch. But then again, if you're in a car that never spins, it may not be that scary. So I know a lot of people too were talking about how they hate the nets that are around this ride. I actually really liked them. I thought that they sort of gave this creepy effect to the ride, and I'm interested to see what they look like at night. So overall, I enjoyed Curse of the Werewolf. I just wouldn't wait in a super long line for it. It was at this point that I was starting to get hungry, and so I took a chance to explore Das Steakhouse. So this is the main eating location in Dark Universe. They also have the Burning Blade Tavern where you can get food and drinks at, but Das Steakhouse is definitely the bigger of the two options. The theming in here is awesome. It's dark, it's creepy, it's moody. There's staked vampires everywhere. The lighting changes every so often to this red color that sort of illuminates everything. And the food I had was pretty good. I got the crimson glazed pork. So this was charred roasted pork belly with a bloody roast pork dipping sauce. And then it also had green onion mashed potatoes, some roasted baby carrots, squash, and some mushrooms. And I gotta say, it was pretty good. I will say this though, I enjoy sweet things, but I thought the sauce was almost too sweet for me. There was a particular flavor in it that when you first ate was like, oh, this is really good. But it was one of those flavors that the more you ate it, the more you were kind of like, oh, this is actually starting to become a little overwhelming. So I think that if I got this again, I wouldn't use all the sauce that was there. But the potatoes were excellent. The pork itself was great. And yeah, I would definitely recommend this to people if they're looking for something to eat. It also isn't like typical theme park food, I feel like. You're not normally getting roasted pork with vegetables and mashed potatoes, I feel like, at a lot of theme parks. So definitely recommend this. And then I wanted to try the mocktail they have, the monocane. So this is pineapple, blue raspberry, passion fruit, prism powder, and Sprite. I will say it was a little expensive, but this was really good. This had a good amount of sweet flavoring, but it didn't taste like it was, oh, just one flavor. I could definitely tell that there were different juices mixed in together. It had a bit of a fizz from that Sprite. It was really good. I'm not sure if I would get this every time because it is $7 and there aren't free refills of it. However, I recommend people try this because it may end up being your new favorite drink. I really enjoyed this, and if I don't mind spending the $7 for it, I'd definitely get it again. Plus, I was able to fill it up with water afterwards and rehydrate, which is super important when you're spending all day at a theme park like Epic Universe. The next world I went to was How to Train Your Dragon, Isle of Berk. And I gotta say, this was the world I was the least excited to see, and it still blew my expectations out of the water. I mean, that reveal is amazing. I mean, it may be the most detailed view maybe that you first get, but I felt like, oh, I'm in a Viking village where there's dragons. It felt amazing. One of my best friends is a big How to Train Your Dragon fan, and I told him, I said, spoiler free, you're gonna cry. Because it's just amazing walking into this land and seeing all the statues, seeing the Mead Hall, seeing the wing gliders, just being able to see all of this when you first walk in. is truly amazing. I thought this was going to be an area that's like just for kids and it was going to be almost boring, but there's so much to look at. Hiccup's Wing Gliders is actually a really fun roller coaster. So I waited in line for that and it did go down while I was waiting in line. And unfortunately, there's not much to look at in the queue for this. And I do wish that there was a bit more. It's very much like a cattle pen. About half of it is covered, but half of it is not. So if this line ever goes into the area that is not covered, I probably just wouldn't want to wait in that sun. But I will say that the ride itself actually really impressed me. I thought this was going to be like a kiddie ride, kind of like Slinky Dog Dash, and I was going to be bored by it. Those launches pack a punch, and there's like a forward and backwards section that's fun, that's really well themed. There's onboard audio, so you actually get to hear Hiccup instructing you and telling you what's going on as you're riding. And of course, the How to Train Your Dragon music plays, and it's just really emotional. I get emotional almost every time I hear the main theme song. So the ride itself was really fun. It actually may have been the most surprising thing that I did while I was there because I wasn't expecting a ton from it, but it was actually a really good time. So it's definitely not a kiddie ride, more of a family ride. It's definitely more intense than a Slinky Dog Dash or Seven Dwarfs Mine Train or even the Troller Coaster. It's definitely more intense than those rides, so just keep that in mind if you want to ride with little kids. I did do Dragon Racers Rally. The line was pretty low whenever I was walking by there, so I wanted to take advantage of that because this is a ride that, like Minecart Madness over in Super Nintendo World, will not be taking Express Pass, so I wanted to take advantage of the low line while I could. And I gotta say, this was a one and done for me. I know that there should be a way that you can flip these so you go upside down while you're riding, but I wasn't able to figure that out, and I didn't see anybody really flip like I've seen some people on these rides be able to do. And the ride cycle was so short. And I get that because they want the line to keep moving, but I feel like if I would have waited more than like 10-15 minutes for this and got on that ride, I would have been really upset with how short the duration was. So this was a one and done for me. I don't necessarily need to do it again unless I figure out how to make myself flip. I skipped out on Fire Drill because I didn't really want to get wet on this visit to Epic Universe, but it looked fun. You know, there's lots of water explosions and it looks like people are able to shoot things from the boat. So it looked fun and it looked really well themed. I just passed up on it this time because I was in shoes that I did not want to walk around if they were soaking wet. So I passed on Fire Drill. I did see the Untrainable Dragon show, and it's been getting some mixed reviews from some people, but I actually really enjoyed it. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but there were some pretty cool reveals. I thought the costumes were cool. The music was okay. I don't think they're necessarily needed to be singing, but the effects were neat. I enjoyed it. I think that kids are going to enjoy it. I think that it's really fun. I think it's a good way to sort of get out of the heat. It didn't seem as busy as the Harry Potter show did, so it was not as long of a wait. I didn't feel like I had to do a mad rush to go to see it. That may be because it's kind of towards the back of the world, and so it's not right there in the center. But I enjoyed it. Like, I would definitely see this again. And again, I told my friend, you're gonna cry because you love How to Train Your Dragon, and there's just some things in this show that are really cool, especially if you're a fan of that series. And then later on, I decided to get dinner at the Mead Hall, which was really nice. It actually was not super busy, which I found kind of surprising. And the theming here was cool. It wasn't as immersive as Das Steakhouse was, but there were still some cool banners. It did feel like a Viking hall. So it was still pretty cool to be able to sit here and eat and enjoy your food. And it was relatively quiet, which I also enjoyed. For my dinner at Mead Hall, I got Berserker's meatballs. So these are Swedish meatballs, onion gravy, lingonberry jam, and smashed root vegetables. Now, here's the thing. When this came out, I was not aware that the smashed root vegetables were actually going to be mashed sweet potatoes. The picture that they had on the app did not look as orange as sweet potatoes did. I thought it was going to be sort of a combination of a few different vegetables mashed together, but they were sweet potatoes. So I asked once my food was delivered if I could get these swapped out with something else, and they were so nice that they actually let me swap it out for fries. So that is something they did not have to do, and so I really wanted to shout them out. Had they said, no, we can't, we're sorry, I would have just eaten the mashed potatoes anyway, but it was just so nice for them to be able to do that. These meatballs were awesome. They were sweet and they weren't overpoweringly sweet. I would say that they're probably not as sweet as like an IKEA Swedish meatball, which is really nice because to me, that means I could just keep eating them. And I will say that the fries had a seasoning on here that was really good. If you're somebody who doesn't like a lot of seasoning on their fries, they may not have been for you because they were kind of oniony, maybe a little bit of garlic, but I thought they were really good. So I definitely recommend these meatballs. I thought they were really great. And I was just so happy that they were able to swap that out for me. So I would definitely eat at Mead Hall again. A lot of the other options that they had on the menu seemed like they'd be something that I would enjoy. Overall, How to Train Your Dragon Isle of Berk really surprised me. It may have been the world that surprised me the most, again, because it was the one that I was the least excited for. But I mean, there's dragons for you to look at that are moving. You know, you can meet Toothless. You can just see all these different things going on in this land. And this world felt pretty large too. It was probably the biggest one that I experienced. Dark Universe feels kind of small and I wish it were bigger, but Isle of Berk is really big. I felt like I was walking around in there for a really long time. It just sort of kept going. So this is definitely, for being the world that I was the least excited to see, I would definitely come back here and ride the rides here, see the show, eat the food, and enjoy my time here without a problem. The final portal that I went to was Harry Potter Ministry of Magic. So I'm not gonna lie, I feel like this reveal at first was a little underwhelming compared to the other ones, but that's kind of because of the way that it's structured. Like you basically walk forward and then there's a wall that you have to sort of walk around. And then kind of once you walk around, you see the giant arc there, and that's really cool. And then you get the neat visual of the Parisian street. So once you're able to see that, it's really neat. There's just not an immediate reaction once you get into the portal, like with some of the other worlds. But I will say, as somebody who's been lucky enough to go to Paris, I felt like I was in Paris walking through this. It almost didn't even feel like a Harry Potter world because I didn't see a ton of magical stuff around me. I felt like I was in Paris. I was seeing a cafe. I was seeing these buildings, these old looking buildings. It just felt so much like I was really there. It was really throwing me off. It's so well themed. The buildings are massive. The level of detail that they've put into this park, it just continues to blow my mind. It was just beautiful to look at. Unfortunately, I didn't get anything to eat or drink in this world this time around because there were some other things I wanted to prioritize, but I did get to see the show that they have here, which was really cool. It's called Le Cirque Arcanus, and you walk in and it's immediately like this circus tent, which I love. I love circuses. I love carnivals. I love that vibe. So walking in and waiting in line to enter this show and having that be what you're looking at was really cool. And it's one of those things that it's supposed to be magical. Like you think it's going to be a really small tent and then you go inside and it's a lot bigger than it looks on the outside. That was really cool. No spoilers from me for this show, but it was really enjoyable. I even, during my performance, had a technical error that happened where things sort of stopped for a minute or two and they came right back and picked up where they left off and everything looked great. It's definitely magical. I would definitely recommend this show for anybody that likes magic, for anybody that wants to get out of the heat. It was really, really cool. Now, something to remember about this particular world is it's more themed to the Fantastic Beasts movies, at least the outside area is. So if you don't have a strong connection to any of those movies, then you may not necessarily feel super moved by the theming. But honestly, like I said, I walked around and just felt like I was in Paris. It almost barely felt magical to me, and it just felt like I was walking through Paris again, which I loved. Now, I do want to talk about Harry Potter and the Battle at the Ministry ride. I was not able to experience this whenever I went, and that makes me a little upset, and let me explain why. Currently, they're implementing a virtual queue system for this ride, and the virtual queue opens at 11 a.m., 3 p.m., and 6 p.m. At least it did whenever I visited. The way it works is you go in the app, there's a few different ways that you can get to the ride, and then once you're there, the virtual queue button will light up, and you're supposed to be able to tap that button, select your time and the number of people that you want to ride with, and you're supposed to be given a time. I diligently began checking the app about 5 to 10 minutes before these drop times and started refreshing. I made sure my Wi-Fi was turned off because a lot of people said that the universal Wi-Fi kind of messes things up when you're trying to do this. So I was on cellular, refreshing. I would get as far as being able to tap the virtual queue button. I would then tap that I wanted one person to ride. I'd get a few ride times occasionally, and when I would tap them, it would say there's no more times available for this number of people. So it was weird to me that I, a single rider, could not get a spot on this ride. And that was, I tried it all 3 times and it didn't work. And I was even looking throughout the day to see if they were randomly dropping times, and I just wasn't able to find anything and get on this ride. And what's really bad about this is it's really clear that people are experiencing the same thing I am. Almost every time these drops happened, I would stand to the side and be refreshing my phone, and I'd look around and there would be groups of people doing the same thing. Stopped in Super Nintendo World, stopped outside of Hiccup's Wing Gliders, and stopped outside the Harry Potter World portal. So everybody was doing the same thing, and I never saw anybody be able to get access to this ride. It's going to be really bad once this park opens up to the general public after the official opening if more people are not able to ride this. Imagine this being the only ride you really wanted to be able to ride, and you can't do it, and you've done everything correctly. You've checked at all the drop times, you've been refreshing your phone, and you're just never able to get a slot to ride this. It's definitely something that they need to fix. So I hope that it's something that is implemented a little better by the time that the official opening happens on May 22nd, because as it is right now, this is definitely a miss for me. So hopefully I'll be able to tell you all what I thought of this ride in a future update. Overall, I did enjoy the Harry Potter Ministry of Magic area of the park. I will say though, compared to some of the other Harry Potter areas that they've done at their other parks, it almost felt like there wasn't a ton to see here. There's one ride and one show, which I guess is not that different than some of the other areas that they've built, but it didn't feel like there was a lot to actually do here. So next time I go, I want to try going in some of the shops and maybe trying to grab some food here and see how it compares. But like I said, I just love being able to walk around and feel like I'm in Paris again. That's just really great. And finally was Stardust Racers. So whenever I first got to the park, Stardust Racers was closed and didn't open up until later in the afternoon. And I gotta say, only one side was running, so it was kind of sad that I didn't get to experience the dueling aspect of this ride. However, I will say this, even without the dueling, this ride is awesome. I'd say I probably still like Velocicoaster a little more because it has some better theming and is a bit more immersive in that regard. But this is probably my number 2 favorite ride in all of Universal Orlando. It's so fun. The inversion is wild. It's smooth. You get thrown out of your seat with a lot of airtime. And I don't want to give any spoilers, but this ride also does something that somebody who's ridden over 200 roller coasters, have never experienced on a roller coaster before. And it literally took my breath away. And it's just so cool. It's sort of themed to this train station where you're almost going to be riding these comets and racing them. And that's really cool because it kind of feels like New York, and I love New York. So you're kind of walking around this train station vibe at a few different points. It's really fun. And I hope that they get the other side up and running by my next visit, because I'd love to be able to see what this ride is like whenever it's dueling. I also was able to do this ride at night, and it is absolutely wild at night. It's wild during the day, but at night there's no lights on the track, and so you're just flying along, getting thrown out of your seat. The onboard audio just fits this ride so well, and also being able to see the park whenever it's lit up at night is just really cool. I will say that the music they play as you leave the station lures you into this false sense of calm and just, oh, this is really relaxing, because then you immediately launch and it's not relaxing anymore. But this ride is just so much fun. This is a must do for me when I visit Epic Universe from now on, because it's so much fun. It's very intense. So if you're somebody who doesn't like really intense rides, this may not be for you, but just know that it's smooth, it's not painful, and it's just a really great experience. And I can't wait to get on this again and hopefully be able to experience the green track and experience the dueling aspect of this ride, because I'm sure it's even better whenever it's dueling. I almost feel weird even trying to rate it or like tell people about it. And so that wraps up my initial thoughts on Epic Universe. Overall, I was really impressed. I think that the park is beautiful. I listened to a podcast, Theme Park Stop with Alicia Stella, and they were saying like this park just feels expensive. It just feels like a park that there was a lot of money poured into. and a lot of care was taken. And I definitely agree. I walked around this park and there were just things I was seeing that I was just like, I can't believe they took the time to do this. Like some of the details and some of the different things they did here, like the Burning Blade Tavern lighting on fire, and just the portal into Isle of Berk was just amazing. It's just insane. And I'm so grateful to be able to live in a time where I was able to experience this park, let alone experience it before the general public could. It just is something that I will remember for the rest of my life. Now, I will say there were quite a few operational issues whenever I visited. Now, again, they're in technical rehearsals. They're not officially open to the public yet. So that's something to bear in mind. So I really hope that these operational issues are fixed. Because like I said, Donkey Kong Minecart Madness kept going down throughout the day and had really long wait times. Monsters Unchained ended up closing early. Stardust Racers, one side wasn't working and it opened late and then it broke down later in the night. Hiccup's Wing Gliders closed a few times while I was waiting in line for it. So I just really hope that these things are addressed, as well as the Harry Potter Battle at the Ministry ride. The virtual queue, I'm all for if somebody figures out a virtual queue and implements it correctly. I'm all for that. But people need to be able to ride this ride when they go. People need to have a chance to be able to experience this ride. So I really hope that they fix some of the things that they are trying to implement with that ride right now, because as somebody who was doing everything they were supposed to be to try and get a spot to ride and didn't get it any time, feels a little weird to me. So I hope that more people are able to experience it, and I hope that they fix that. Overall though, this park is great. I definitely recommend it. When it opens up, it's gonna be very busy, so remember that as well. I'd probably recommend getting express passes if you come here for the first year or so, because everybody's gonna wanna be experiencing it, and for good reason. I mean, it's a great park. You can easily spend a day here. Easily. I'm going back in 2 weeks, and there's still things I haven't been able to do. So I'm just so excited to be able to go to this park again. And I'd love to be able to help you experience this park. So if you're interested in going to Universal Orlando, there's a link in the description. Please let me know. I'm a travel agent and I would love to help you book your next trip. And if you have any other questions, comments, leave them down below. Like, subscribe, and follow me for more theme parks and travel content. And everybody, stay safe and have a great day.